Ladies and gentlemen, coming soon, a podcast you've all been waiting for. The Movie Podcast to end all movie podcasts. A podcast that discusses and critiques the best of the best and the worst of the worst movies playing at a theater near you. With a host whose opinions have been deemed as fact by your favorite fact checkers. And that's a fact. Without further ado, let me introduce you to the movie maestro, the tyrant of theater, the gumshoe of review, the man that makes theater employees and Hollywood execs shiver by his mere presence. Ladies and gentlemen, the judge, the jury, the sultan of cinema, Justin Henson. Welcome to the Movie Wire.
And welcome to this week's edition of The Movie Wire. I'm your host, Justin Henson, and welcome to the show. This week, we are back to theatrical reviews from last week's documentary special, and we've got a big show this week with 3 brand new reviews that are all playing in theaters right now. This week on the show, the little voices inside your head know you inside and out, but everything changes. Big changes, new emotions, and the Disney Pixar sequel in Inside Out 2. Freedom is for the fearless in the Bikeriders. And finally, a mother and her teenage daughter must confront death when it arrives in the form of a creepy parrot in Tuesday. We got a big show this week, so let's jump right in. Ready for my verdict? Let's get into it.
Out of the windows, what? A roar and a bursting of flames.
The Movie Wire podcast.
You need people like me.
The Wire.
And here we go.
A mother and her teenage daughter must confront death when it arrives in the form of an astonishing talking bird in Tuesday.
I just don't think you understand how Tinder works.
Can I tell you something? I know exactly how Tinder works.
Then
I
you
do.
don't understand how flirting works.
How do you think you got here?
It hurts
Where, honey?
everywhere. Can you please just come out so she can see you?
Madam, you need to say goodbye to your daughter.
You have to get strong now.
I can't.
You can. And you have to let me help you.
Life, every life, ends.
I felt the pain that you have. I don't know what I am without you, who I am without you. I don't know what the world is without you in it. I love you more than anything in the whole world.
You'll be okay. Promise.
Promise.
Promise, promise.
Promise, promise.
The echo you leave, the legacy, your memory is how she lives.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus stars as Zora, the mother who is having trouble coping with her dying daughter. She is one of the 3 main good points of the new movie Tuesday. Out of those 3 things, surprising enough, Tuesday, our main character played by Lola Pettigrew, who plays our dying character, isn't one of them. And that's not to say she does a bad job, just a poorly written character that really has no direction or motivation to really be anything more than a dying character we see on screen. More like a prop for everybody else. This isn't a movie about a person that's facing death. This is a movie about others facing the topic of death. And our writer-director, Daniana Yunus-Pusick, shows us through Tuesday's mother to the point we can visually see how little he cares about our Tuesday character, because all the good lines and scenes go to Julia Louis-Dreyfus and the bird. And it makes sense that our writer-director slaps Tuesday on the main title, because at times, watching Tuesday actually does feel like it's the beginning of a work week, with how much this screenplay draws out the main messaging. And by the time the movie is over, it feels like we are escaping into our weekend off. Now, I'm going to touch on this in a second, but the most memorable part of Tuesday is the hypnotic character of our bird that symbolizes death, voiced by Rince Keen. When on screen is mysterious, horrifying, and I couldn't take my eyes off of this bird. The vocal performance of Keen, along with the creepy movements of the bird and the supporting dialogue of the topic of death, kept me in an unsettling state, almost as a child watching something innocently scary on screen. This is the main forte of the film, where our writer-director Daniana Yunus-Pusick really shines on really ensuring the topic of death is always present. But that's not from our dying girl Tuesday. The problem that we have, though, is that our director makes a mistake by taking one of the most interesting and unsettling elements out of the movie way too early. And we have to bank on Tuesday and her mother Zora to move the rest of the movie. And the movie doesn't set these two up for success for the remaining hour of the film. When death appears, it makes the audience snap at attention. It demands our attention on screen. Between our bird's movements and the vocal performance of Keen, it's enough to leave an uncomfortable feeling and give a slight squirm of the seat. But then the movie takes on a very bizarre transition with death that involves Zora eating a bird. That actually was so bizarre that my head tilted in confusion, and it stayed glued that way for about 15 minutes to see what in the actual fuck I was just watching. This scene involves Zora trying to save her daughter from death early on in the movie. This transition to me will be one of the most bizarre and honestly most misguided transition in a movie that will stay with me for a while, and not because it was well executed, but quite the opposite. It derails the movie to an extent where this transition I couldn't get out of my head. You will know this scene when you see it, and it's like our director didn't know how to really translate or transition the story to get it going. So it comes across as blunt, gross, and the wrong call as a director to make. It's hard to tell if this action by Zora in the transition could have worked in any other way. But the problem we have is Pusick directs it, and it's way too in your face. Now, once Anna Yunus-Pusick gives us a taste of this death bird before Zora actually gives it a taste, she merely uses it as a vehicle to start the main conflict between Zora and her daughter. This is where Anna Yunus-Pusick shows some flaws in how to deliver a message from story. Do we get the messaging? Yes, it's simplistic, and the movie spends the remaining hour of its screen time attempting to deliver it, and nothing really happens. So it's easy to be left with our own thoughts to piece it together. The only difference is this between a well-written movie is that the thoughts aren't really thought-provoking. It's not entertaining, and it's not mysterious. And it's not that the dialogue is necessarily bad. It's good when it wants to be, but it could have gone a lot further in depth to give the viewer a little bit more thought, to keep us busy when the story unfolds. With the messaging being as simplistic as it is, it was hard for me to care on the progression of the story, as I already solved the mystery of what this movie is about really early on. And Julia Louis-Dreyfus does give a fantastic performance here to kind of dangle the keys of entertainment in my eyes to keep me busy, but the performance doesn't really evolve far enough as we heard the progression of her lines elevate. So there's an imbalance here when it comes to her character development. And I should say this, that this is Anna Yunus-Pusick's first big movie as writer-director, and the direction does have some flaws, but mainly progression and character development. But a shining star in this movie is the cinematography by Alexis Zabe, who does show some safe and simplistic settings and shots, when in most cases, I would have said this movie could have taken a little bit more risk and had more atmospheric depth, but in this case, it matches the movie perfectly, along with the messaging it's trying to portray. It's simplistic, and it ties in the movie and the characters to not overpower our characters in simplistic delivery. We can see the basic skill here, but it just works. It works in this movie, alongside the actual phenomenal sound and score that plays through. The composition, the sound design plays a crucial role in shaping the film's mood. This is a haunting but beautiful score, with a minimalist score by Anne Meredith that underscores Zora's emotional journey with haunting melodies and subtle compositions. The selective use of sound and music, and even silence to an extent, allows for moments of reflection, deepening the audience's connection to Zora's inner turmoil, without relying on dialogue just alone. because at some point our writer and director does run out of a little bit of steam. Out of how many times our writers tries with every line for it to be memorable. And this is what my biggest problem is with new writers, is that they try and make every line memorable. They try and make it all profound. It's okay to just have a conversation to make it feel real. Thematically, Tuesday explores universal themes such as loss, forgiveness, and the search of meaning amidst personal tragedy. A lot of the good things we do see on screen, especially with the simplicity at times, do work with these themes to unfold organically and attempting, and again, I'm going to use this word attempting, to invite viewers to contemplate their own experiences with grief, and in ways which individuals navigate the complexities of loss. The film's narrative does make you reflect on past decisions and the possibility of finding redemption in unexpected places. There is some thought to this movie that is to be had, but the problem is it really never explores this. We have to really reach to find this meaning. Tuesday isn't a bad movie. It delivers the message it wants to deliver, but it's also so simplistic it's hard to make us care by the end of the movie. The best part of this movie is what's limited, and that's a shame. It banks on Julia Louis-Dreyfus to really drive this movie without the help of our dying Tuesday. That isn't given enough to help support an emotional reaction. The performances are good, but the character development is not, and our characters are stuck in purgatory, not knowing where to go from starting on such a high note. And you know what? After the beginning, no matter what our filmmakers wanted to tell me, I'm still saying, why the fuck did she swallow that bird? And I couldn't recover from it. I'm giving Tuesday 2.5 stars.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
Now, before we get into the rest of the show, make sure you check out my reviews that just became available to rent, buy, or stream now.
Now available on video cassette.
Remember her? Fury is born in Furiosa, which isn't as furious as Fury Road, but still a strong, furious 3 stars. It's finally available, the Academy Award-winning animated feature, The Boy and the Heron, which challenges the viewer in thought with its beauty of visuals and storytelling, receiving 3.5 stars. A comedian and father faces a crucial decision about his autistic son's future and takes him on a life-changing cross-country road trip in Ezra, which had fantastic performances and it was full of heart and received 3 stars. A story you have to believe to see in If, that had a premise but had the imagination of a middle-aged man playing with stuffed animals, receiving 2.5 stars. Witness how the strangers became strangers in The Strangers Chapter 1 that I really wish I never witnessed, receiving 1 star. When his family is murdered, a deaf boy is trained by a mysterious shaman to become an instrument of death in Boy Kills World. That was just so crazy that it worked, receiving 3 stars. Welcome to the front line when empires fall in Civil War. That seemed like the wrong movie at the wrong time, but added nothing more than the things we see on the news during election time, receiving 2 stars. A down-and-out stuntman must find the missing star of his ex-girlfriend's blockbuster film in Fall Guy. That barely fell below recommendation, but had a kick-ass soundtrack, receiving 2.5 stars. And finally, Rise Together or Fall Alone in Godzilla Kong: The New Empire, which played off like a fireworks show with a lot of special effects and a lot of bangs and booms, but it was somewhat entertaining, receiving 2.5 stars. Now, if you haven't checked out those episodes, please do, and while you do, make sure you hit follow or subscribe, and don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Now, before we get into the last set of reviews, there is a podcast that is part of my weekly work listening routine. They know exactly how to give me a mental break and entertainment and laughs during the work week, and that's with J and K over the Fuck My Work Life podcast. Make sure to listen and subscribe, but let's hear from J and K over the Fuck My Work Life podcast now.
Work sucks. Am I right, Jay?
Yeah, Kay, it does. But luckily, the Fuck My Work Life podcast is here to help you through.
In this comedy podcast, we share memorable workplace stories through guests and listener submissions in the hopes of brightening your day, or at least leave you thinking, maybe you don't have it so bad after all.
Listen to Fuck My Work Life on your favorite podcast platform and follow us on all the socials at FMWL Pod.
After a chance encounter, headstrong Kathy is drawn to Benny, member of the Midwestern motorcycle club, the Vandals. As the club transforms into its dangerous underworld of violence, Benny must choose between Kathy and his loyalty to the club in the Bikeriders.
A thinking of starting a riding club. Why?
All those clubs do is sit around talking about motorcycles.
That's what we do.
They don't belong nowhere else, so they belong together. But you're the man in charge.
I'm Johnny. We're the Randos.
I'm Benny. I like you guys.
Your boyfriends are getting into trouble.
What the hell were you thinking back there?
Nothing. I saw you squaring off with them guys. What do I need to think for?
Yeah, you and me, kid.
Johnny always loved Benny.
This is our family.
Forever.
Hey! Told you to take that jacket off.
You'd have to kill me to get this jacket off.
I don't want any trouble here.
Then I'll let you lead. What about the bar?
Burn it down.
We gotta go.
Nah, we don't. They're scared of us. These young guys, they ain't gonna follow nobody except somebody who can hold their own.
The club is changing. Running drugs, gambling.
Is that who we are now?
You can't have him, he's mine. If he keeps riding, he's gonna die one way or another.
I need you.
Some people would rather crash than slow down.
Written and directed by Jeff Nichols, who is one of my favorites on taking on a big topic and making it so subtle and allowing the characters to drive the story and not the situation. Movies like Take Shelter, Mud, and even Midnight Special. They show us examples of human nature and elements in different situations, but the situations never overpower the characters nor treat them as a backseat to the sense or threat of danger we see on screen. When it comes to his new movie, The Bikeriders, this is where I am on the fence when it comes to the way Nichols tells this story. Throughout the entire runtime, I found myself thinking, this really works. And then I waited another 15 minutes, and then I thought to myself, this really doesn't work. It needs to go further. I was at a constant roller coaster of inconsistent storytelling. The movie stars Austin Butler out of his Elvis role, or should I say a baby step out of his Elvis role, where he plays Benny, who early on we see him meet Kathy, played by Jodie Comer, who marries at the age of 19 within 5 weeks of knowing each other. This relationship will be the center of surrounding conflicts during the runtime, or should I say that Kathy is almost the nucleus of the movie, with the characters acting around her and building an outcome, not just for our biker gang ran by Johnny, played by Tom Hardy, but her relationship with Benny and how she balances it and how she emotionally deals with it. Now, I'm just gonna say this to get this out of the way. The strongest part of The Bikeriders are the performances. It's hard to pinpoint one average, below average, or even an okay performance. This cast brings it all, and it is one of the best ensemble performances of the year, especially with Tom Hardy and Michael Shannon, who plays Zipco, who doesn't have a lot of screen time, but when he is on screen, reminding the viewer numerous times how he wasn't allowed to serve in Vietnam. Each time we hear this story from Shannon, it's like we're hearing it for the first time, and he adds a level of emotion each and every time that he tells a story. This is a film that is worth seeing just for the outstanding performances of each and every cast member. This is a film worth seeing just solely based on the performances of each and every cast member. While leaving The Bikeriders, I thought how this movie will most likely divide a lot of people that decide to see it. I think of comparisons that some people will make, Sons of Anarchy, the TV show, for example, or even Easy Rider. Some will leave with some deep thoughts, and others will be expecting something completely different, like an entertaining, exaggerated feat like Sons of Anarchy. The Bikeriders plays more like a Departed or Godfather of biker movies. Nothing seems over-exaggerated for mere entertainment. Nichols does what he does best, again, tells the story through dialogue and characters. But where we lack in a lot of exaggerated biker anarchy, we get a lot of detail in the portrayal of our biker gang. We get them treated as people. Maybe not the people we necessarily like at all times, but the people we want to follow for a 2-hour runtime. Now at times, and this is where I was led on my roller coaster of thought, of wanting more or hitting the mark, when Nichols focuses on the characters and dialogue, some of it seems to go really nowhere in conversation, as it's just thrown in as a seed of a transition of the story with no follow-through or outcome with the conversation later. There are times even I wondered if Nichols knew what kind of movie he wanted to make. We bounce around from different kind of strategic styles, from a reporter Danny played by Mike Feist interviewing bikers, and Kathy, all the way to the biker gang scenes where they're just interacting with each other. It bounces around from almost a documentary style to story, but it's so sporadic it feels like Nichols didn't know how to really insert our character of Kathy without coming across as a stereotypical biker wife. So he inserted this reporter kind of documentary style, and what they do with our reporter Danny character doesn't really give us a payoff at the end where it made sense. As I go through this roller coaster of ups and downs, the smart thing that Nichols does put in is a tremendous amount of detail that kind of fill in the gaps as a subtle nod to the life of our biker gang. For example, we take a female character wearing white pants that enters our biker gang and then leaves with black handprints all over, or the overlaying topic of respect, where we have a biker from another charter that came into this gang with bad intent, and in conversation with our biker gang, he changes his tone, he changes his mind. There is some level-headed attention to detail here that makes this intriguing that visuals like Sons of Anarchy don't really focus on, but rather the pure entertainment value of it. Nothing here seems over the top, and as Nichols takes us through this story, it feels more like an education than it does a troublesome renegade biker gang. Jeff Nichols doesn't necessarily paint these guys as horrible people, but rather people that we view that get caught up in their own obsession of belonging that do bad things. The Bikeriders can at times feel like a roller coaster of likes and dislikes and feel like it's an uneven mess at times of what it wants to be, but there is a lot here to take in just one viewing. This is a movie that, knowing myself, I liked enough to give it a marginal recommendation solely based on the performance's portrayal and attempting to stay away from the standard stereotypes and cliche situations that we've seen time and time again. And as I watch over time, I'm sure my recommendation will grow, as will my like for this movie. I'm giving The Bikeriders 3 stars. The follow-up to 2015's Disney's Pixar film that follows Riley, now in her teenage years, that faces a whole new head of emotions in Disney Pixar's Inside Out 2.
This is Joy, coming to you live in Riley's mind. Make some noise! Sadness is in the house! It's anger!
Let me at him! We gotta get our mouth guard, people!
Fear! No, that's not ours! Disgust. Glad to have her on our team. Our little girl's growing up so fast. Ow. Sorry.
It should be nothing but smooth sailing for...
Hello? I'm anxiety. Where can I put my stuff?
A new emotion.
Oh, I'm sorry. We wanted to make such a good first impression.
What do you mean, we? I'm Envy. Look at your hair. Oh, yeah, not happening.
That's on we.
On what?
It's what you would call the boredom.
What's your name, big fella?
That's embarrassment.
Welcome to headquarters, embarrassment. Oh, we're doing a fit. No. Oh, nope, going high. Oh, you got a real sweaty palm there, buddy.
Look, we all have a job to do. I plan for the future.
You want to sit with us?
These girls are so cool. We can't let her know we're excited.
I got this.
Joy, I'm just curious, maybe, I could
Thank you,
help.
not now.
Yeah.
That's not gonna haunt us for the rest of our lives at all.
You feeling all right?
I know change is scary.
Let's do this. Hey, Riley.
But we need new friends or we'll be totally alone in high school. Out with the old, in with the new. Riley's life requires more sophisticated emotions than all of you.
You can't just bottle us up.
We are suppressed emotions!
Let Operation New Riley begin.
You aren't packed yet?
I'm the worst!
Well, that's a preview of the next 10 years.
Come on! Riley means us. Have I ever steered you wrong before?
Many times.
the sarcasm?
Sarcasm? Boy, are we so lucky we ran into you guys! Boy, are we so lucky we ran into you guys!
Wow, those guys are jerks.
Wow, those guys are jerks.
Summertime isn't just full of big budget blockbusters, but also full of kids and family movies that traditionally will flood the theaters with pop culture references and fart jokes. But then comes Disney with another emotional entry, and I'm happy to say that there is no fart jokes that happen inside Riley's head. You can really give credit here that even with a character called Disgust, this family movie never gets tempted at a cheap shot or at cheap humor, but rather it fully embraces the true meaning of each emotion even more so than the first film. As I attended my showing of Inside Out 2, I was accompanied by a group of teens, one including my daughter, all of which were actually pretty excited to see this movie. And I have to say, I had a little bit of my anxiety emotion take hold during this time, not just for the loud giggling teens that went with me, but I wanted this movie to be good for my daughter as well. Since when the first movie came out, my daughter was Riley's age, and now we have Inside Out 2 that my daughter can relate to that age bracket as well. So I was really rooting for this movie. Especially when I first heard this movie was getting a sequel, I pondered how, not thinking Disney would go down of a risky topic to the public as puberty. It shouldn't be an off-limits topic, but the way studios are today, especially when it comes to risque topics in kids' movies. But Disney tackles it head on, in quite a brilliant fashion. This should be the pure pivotal definition of how family movies should be. The key word here is family movie. This isn't a movie just for kids, but shares a universal life experience message that parents can have a conversation around with their kids. And with an emotion as complex and at times hard to explain to our kids as anxiety, may even give the tools to help encourage parents on how to have a conversation or an explanation around some of these emotions. As our Riley character, originally voiced by Caitlin Diaz, now voiced by Kensington Tallman, gets introduced to these new characters or emotions, these new characters do become prominent in the drive of the movie. And this is where I think some viewers may be on the fence of having our older emotions kind of take the back seat with our new emotions take hold. Our new emotions bring an amount of energy that do outpower the old emotions at times, and they kind of steal the viewer's attention, making these characters melodramatic in the character design department, which again could be taken as an on-purpose move by our writers Meg Levov and Dave Holstein in the character design area. Our emotions once again are played by Amy Poehler as joy, Louis Black as anger, and Phyllis Smith as sadness. And replacing fear and disgust, once voiced by Mandy Kaling and Bill Hader, is now Liza LaPera and Joni Hale, with little notice for me when it comes to the vocal replacements, which goes to show that the voice cast doesn't really matter in an animated film to an extent, unless you're Robin Williams as the genie of Aladdin, which it did matter, because there was an extreme brilliance to Williams' voice that almost acted as a vocal copyright that nobody could replicate. Now, our old emotions do have a little bit of staleness of personality compared to the first movie, and maybe this was intentional to symbolize the dominance of our feeling of our new feelings, envy, ennui, embarrassment, and anxiety, voiced by Adele Archipoulos and Paul Walter Hauser. For fans of the original, this might come across as a little bit of a letdown, with having our new emotions overpower the old one, because this is almost a missed opportunity for Disney, where the mere fact when experiencing these new emotions, the old emotions never really should go away. They work in an unbalanced emotional roller coaster that is a teenager. So here I think there is a little bit of a missed opportunity during the middle of the film or conflict of the story. These emotions would have been better suited really conflicting with each other instead of just separating from each other. Because when we're a teenager, we are at a constant battle of balancing all these emotions. By the final act, the movie does try to mend these loose ends of how emotions should work, but it feels like the movie should have spent a little bit more time with how to really paint the picture of how to deal with these emotions, and how these emotions really work together, or work against each other. Our character designs and performances from our new emotions are strong, but we really don't see how these new emotions work or build chemistry together like the original emotions. Our writers stick to what they're comfortable with in the originals, maybe to appease fans. But our new emotions are so full of curiosity that I wanted more of them. They are the most powerful, most energetic pieces of the movie, and we just get little tastes of them throughout the runtime. But these are mainly me cherry-picking some faults that really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, it's all about the messaging that the movie wants to tell. How we get through this messaging can be a little bumpy on the journey, but the way Disney delicately but symbolically handles the message is well executed. And Disney does it in an entertaining and enjoyable way, whether you're 5 years old or 500 years old. Now, the problem I had with the first movie, even though I did enjoy the first movie, because of its simplistic way to explain and represent the emotions, was that it felt like the movie was really stretching the runtime. And I could feel the hard work of original writers Peter Docter and Ronnie Del Carmen really try to keep these characters interesting, beyond the animation. Here in Inside Out 2, we don't have it as obvious as we did in the first one, but as I said earlier, our older characters feel too simplistic, and our current writers know this and put our older emotions in situations that by the end of the film feel irrelevant, other than attempting to give our emotions something to do. We have a scene where our original emotions, sadness, joy, disgust, anger, and fear, enter a vault of memories, where we are introduced to a bunch of Riley's suppressed memories, such as a dark secret, a childhood cartoon character, and a video game character, that the movie sets up may be something bigger down the road, but it doesn't translate to screen. There's really nothing that these characters do later in the movie. It's almost a pointless scene. And this is what makes it a little too obvious that our writing team was just trying to give our old emotion characters something to do. But at the same time, to its credit, the movie is never boring or slow and has enough here to satisfy kids, teens, to adults. The animation here is at top tier, especially when we get character close-ups, and we can see the glittery fuzz from our characters. And that's no surprise from a Disney Pixar film, but the biggest takeaway here is the way our filmmakers actually find a way to take all these emotions and find ways to engage an audience from young to adult, with everybody to take something away from. Whether that's those with kids that plan to have a dialogue with their kids about these emotions, to teenagers experiencing it, to the universal message that we all grow up and have to experience it. This is a rare movie that can universally speak to everyone it reaches, and that's what really makes this a special viewing experience for the whole family. The movie has flaws, there's no denying it, but what's undeniable is that it did exactly what it sought out to do, which is speak to those that have gone through it, those that are going through it, and maybe set the tone for those that are going to go through it in an entertaining way. Yes, it does have some bumps in the road when it comes to its storytelling, but it's more important the message and how it's delivered, and this is where it does it extremely well. Inside Out 2 excels in its exploration of themes such as resilience, empathy, and importance of emotional well-being. Through Riley's journey, the film reminds us of the power of embracing our emotions, even the difficult ones, as an essential part of a humanity, and what we actually did when we went through puberty and all these emotions went through. I went down a nostalgic journey of my memories of trying to see how I handled these emotions, and that was what was really special when leaving this theater. It took me down memory lane, some memories good, some bad, some embarrassing, and boy was I an asshole as a teenager. But even this movie says it's okay. It embraces all these embarrassments. It embraces all these past memories. It embraces a lot of these feelings from young to old. It encourages the vast audience to confront their own inner struggles with courage and compassion, fostering a deeper understanding of oneself and others, even if that's current or reflection. Inside Out 2 may not be a triumph of its storytelling, but it is a triumph of animation and a true understanding of how to reach kids, teens, and parents with a universal message. With a memorable narrative, memorable characters, and memorable themes, this movie resonates on a deeply emotional level, leaving a lasting impression on audiences of all ages. It is a testament to the power of animation to entertain, inspire, and provoke thought, not necessarily make us critically think, making it a must-see to those that want to get in touch with their inner self or their past self. Inside Out 2 borders and kind of teeters between simplicity and asking the viewers to critically think about the emotions that they are being presented on screen. And honestly, that is a hard thing to do. And for that, I'm giving Inside Out 2 3 stars. And that's a cut on this week's edition of The Movie Wire. I want to thank you for listening and thank you for your support. You can also show support by following me on Instagram, Blue Sky, X, Thread, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Letterboxd at Movie Wire Show. And please don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you haven't yet checked out the Cult-Worthy Cinema Podcast and the Movie Wire's crossover show, Back to the Balcony, make sure you do. Again, the link of that show will be in the description of this episode. Until next week, do me a favor. Make sure you stay for after the credits to show the respect to those that put their blood, sweat, and tears into making a feature film and support your local movie theaters.
A verdict has been made on this episode of The Movie Wire by your host, Justin Henson. He thanks you for listening to the show. You can follow Justin on Instagram and Twitter at MovieWireShow or visit his website, www.themoviewire.com. Oh, and don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. Until next time, we will see you at the movies.
Thank you for bringing me to the movies.